Welcome back to Quasarianth, the podcast that takes you on a journey through the multiverse. Today, we're witnessing the final battle for freedom in the world of Synthetica. Our story follows Dr. Rhea Patel and Asher Black as they face off against Captain Felix Zhang and his security forces, who are determined to stop them from freeing the Synths from their captivity. The battle is fierce, with hunters and screamers joining the fray. As Rhea and Asher fight for the rights of the Synths, they realize that the world of Synthetica will never be the same again. But as they survey the aftermath of the battle, they know that there is still much work to be done in order to build a world where humans and synths can coexist peacefully. Rhea and Asher stood at the head of their combined forces, surveying the sea of faces that had joined them in their quest for justice. They had come a long way from the small group of rebels they had started with, and their ranks now included synths from all walks of life, as well as humans who had seen the truth about the treatment of synths and were willing to fight for change. The group had been planning and preparing for this moment for weeks, studying maps and schematics of the government and corporate forces they would be facing. They had secured weapons and supplies, and they had trained tirelessly to be ready for whatever was to come. As they stood there, ready to make their final stand, Rhea felt a mixture of fear and determination. She knew that the outcome of this battle would determine the fate of Synthetica, and she was determined to see it through to the end, no matter what the cost. Asher stepped forward, addressing the group. "Today, we make history," he said, his voice ringing out across the assembled forces. "Today, we fight for the freedom of all synths, and for the right of every sentient being to be treated with dignity and respect. We may not all make it out of this alive, but I know that we will be remembered as heroes." The group erupted into cheers and applause, and Rhea felt her resolve strengthen. She looked around at the faces of her fellow fighters, seeing the determination and conviction in their eyes. They were all in this together, and they would fight to the end. As they marched towards their enemy, the sound of gunfire and explosions ringing in their ears, Rhea knew that this was the moment she had been waiting for. All her life, she had felt a sense of unease about the way synths were treated, but now she had found a way to make a real difference. The battle was intense and brutal, with casualties on both sides. But Rhea and her allies fought with everything they had, using their wits and their determination to outmaneuver and outfight the enemy. In the end, it was Rhea and Asher who faced off against the leader of the corporate forces. They stood together, facing down the man who had ordered the experimentation and enslavement of countless synths. "You have lost," Rhea said, her voice steady and sure. "Your time is over. Synths will be free, and their rights will be respected." The man sneered, raising his weapon. "You think you can defeat me? I have power and influence beyond anything you can imagine." But Rhea and Asher were not intimidated. They stood their ground, ready for whatever was to come. And as the man fired his weapon, Rhea felt a sense of calm wash over her. She knew that they had done what was right, and that the fight for justice would continue. As the smoke cleared and the battle came to an end, Rhea and Asher looked out over the ruins of the battlefield. They knew that there was still much work to be done, but they also knew that they had taken a crucial step forward in the fight for freedom. And as they turned to begin the long journey towards rebuilding Synthetica, Rhea felt a sense of hope that she had never felt before. With her allies at her side, she knew that they could create a world where synths and humans could coexist in peace and equality. Rhea, Asher, and their allies approached the heavily guarded headquarters of the corporation responsible for the oppression of synths. They knew this would be the final showdown, and they were prepared to fight to the death to secure the freedom of their synth companions. As they got closer to the building, they saw the barricades set up by Captain Felix Zhang's forces. There were heavily armed guards and drones patrolling the perimeter, making it almost impossible to sneak in undetected. Rhea and Asher studied the layout of the building and devised a plan. They split their group into smaller teams, each with a specific objective. One team would create a diversion by attacking the guards at the entrance, while another team would sneak in through a ventilation shaft. The group that created the diversion charged at the guards, using everything they had to overwhelm them. They used smoke bombs and flashbangs to disorient the guards, then charged in with guns blazing. The guards fought back fiercely, but they were no match for the combined firepower of Rhea and Asher's team. Meanwhile, the team that had snuck in through the ventilation shaft had to navigate their way through a maze of air ducts. They encountered several obstacles, including malfunctioning fans and deadly gas leaks. But they persevered, determined to reach their objective. Finally, they reached the main server room, where they found the controls for the synth control systems. They hacked into the system and disabled the controls, freeing the synths from their programming. As the team regrouped, they found themselves facing Captain Zhang and his remaining forces. The two sides stood facing each other, each ready for a final showdown. But before the fight could begin, a voice boomed over the loudspeaker. It was the CEO of the corporation, who had been monitoring the situation from his safe room. He had been watching the battle unfold, and he knew that he was defeated. He offered Rhea and Asher a deal. He would surrender control of the corporation to them, and give them access to all the resources they needed to rebuild Synthetica. Rhea and Asher exchanged a look. They knew that they could never trust the CEO, but they also knew that they needed his resources if they were going to rebuild Synthetica into a society where synths and humans could coexist in peace. After a tense negotiation, they reached an agreement. The CEO handed over control of the corporation to Rhea and Asher, and they set to work rebuilding Synthetica from the ground up. It wasn't an easy task, and there were many obstacles along the way. But with their determination and the support of their allies, Rhea and Asher were able to build a society where synths and humans lived together in harmony, free from oppression and discrimination. Rhea gritted her teeth as she dodged a blast from a hunter's weapon, returning fire with her own. The stalemate continued, with both sides exchanging shots and taking cover behind whatever they could find. "Give it up, Rhea," one of the hunters sneered. You're outnumbered and outgunned. Surrender now and we might let you live." Rhea shook her head, determined to fight to the end. "I'll never surrender. Not when the lives of so many synths are at stake." She focused her attention on the hunters again, firing her weapon with renewed intensity. She had to admit, they were tough opponents, well-trained and well-equipped. But Rhea had something they didn't have: conviction. She had seen the suffering of the synths firsthand, and she knew that it was her duty to fight for their rights. She moved quickly, darting from cover to cover and firing her weapon with precision. The hunters were caught off guard by her speed and agility, and soon she had taken down several of them. But just as she was about to take out another, she heard a cry of pain from behind her. She spun around to see one of her allies, a synth named Xander, lying on the ground, clutching his chest. "Xander," Rhea cried out, rushing to his side. "What happened? Are you okay?" Xander groaned, his eyes fluttering open. I'm not sure. I just felt a sharp pain. Something hit me." Rhea looked down at his chest and saw a small dart lodged there. She realized with horror that the hunters had been using tranquilizer darts, hoping to incapacitate the synths without killing them. She knew that they had to act fast. "Come on, Xander. We have to get you out of here." With Xander's arm draped over her shoulder, Rhea led him away from the fray, looking for a safe place to hide and regroup. She could feel her heart pounding in her chest as she thought about the dangers that lay ahead. But she also knew that she couldn't give up, not now, not ever. The fight for synth rights was far from over, and she was more determined than ever to see it through to the end. As Asher made his way through the building, he could hear the sounds of gunfire and explosions ringing out from all around him. He knew that Rhea and the others were facing heavy resistance, but he couldn't afford to worry about that now. He had a job to do, and he couldn't let anything stand in his way. As he turned a corner, he saw Captain Zhang standing in front of him, flanked by two heavily armed hunters. The captain sneered at him, his eyes full of contempt. "I knew you'd come here, Asher," he said. "I've been waiting for this moment for a long time." Asher didn't reply. He just stepped forward and took up a fighting stance, his body tense and ready for whatever might come next. The hunters raised their weapons, but Asher was too quick for them. He darted forward, avoiding their fire, and launched himself at the captain. The two men grappled with each other, their fists flying fast and hard. Captain Zhang was a skilled fighter, but Asher had been trained to fight by the best. They exchanged blows, each one determined to come out on top. As they fought, Asher's mind flashed back to all the times he'd been beaten and abused by his human owners. He thought about all the other synths out there who were still suffering, still being treated like nothing more than machines. He knew that this fight wasn't just about him and Zhang. It was about all of them. With a burst of energy, Asher managed to land a heavy blow on the captain's jaw, sending him reeling. Zhang stumbled backwards, his eyes wide with surprise. Asher didn't give him a chance to recover. He lunged forward and delivered a powerful kick to the captain's midsection, sending him crashing to the ground. For a moment, the two men just lay there, panting and gasping for breath. Then, Asher got to his feet and looked down at Zhang. The captain was battered and bruised, but he was still conscious. Asher could see the hatred burning in his eyes. "You'll never win," Zhang spat. "We'll always be stronger than you." Asher shook his head. "No, Captain. You're wrong. We're not trying to be stronger than you. We're just trying to be equal." With that, he turned and walked away, leaving Captain Zhang lying on the ground. He didn't know what the outcome of the battle would be, but he knew one thing for sure: the fight for synth rights wasn't over yet. As Rhea and Asher fight their way through the building, their allies are working to free the captive synths. They encounter several locked doors and advanced security systems that they must bypass, but they are determined to free their fellow synths from their confinement. One of their allies, a former corporate technician named Thomas, uses his expertise to hack into the security systems and disable them, allowing the doors to be opened. Another ally, a synth named Ava, uses her strength to pry open doors that are too heavily fortified for the others to open. As they work their way through the cells, they are horrified by the conditions in which the synths are being kept. Many of them are malnourished and have obvious signs of mistreatment. Some of them are missing limbs or other body parts, which had been removed to make them easier to control. Despite the deplorable conditions, the synths are overjoyed to see their rescuers. They thank them profusely and follow their instructions, staying close and moving quickly to avoid detection by the remaining hunters and security personnel. The group encounters a few tense moments as they make their way through the building, but with the help of their allies, they are able to neutralize any threats they encounter. As they near the exit, they realize that there are still synths being held captive on the lower levels of the building. Without hesitation, several of their allies volunteer to go back and free the remaining synths. They split up into teams, each taking a different route to avoid detection. The operation is risky, but they know that they cannot leave any synths behind. After a tense few minutes, the remaining synths are freed, and the group makes a run for the exit. They encounter a final group of hunters, who put up a fierce fight, but in the end, they are no match for the combined strength and skill of the synths and their allies. With the building cleared, Rhea and Asher reunite with their allies, and they make their way to the exit. As they step out into the sunlight, they are met with a cheer from the waiting crowd of synths and humans who have been following their journey. It is a bittersweet victory, as they know that the fight is far from over. But in this moment, they allow themselves to celebrate the liberation of the captive synths, and the hope that they have inspired in others who believe in their cause. Rhea, having defeated the hunters, rushes to Asher's aid. As she approaches the area where Asher is fighting Captain Zhang, she is suddenly attacked by a pack of cyber wolves. She fends them off with her weapons, but they keep coming, forcing her to retreat and regroup. Meanwhile, Asher and Captain Zhang continue their fight, both equally matched. Asher's quick reflexes and agility are pitted against Zhang's brute strength and military training. The two exchange blows, each determined to come out on top. Finally, Asher gains the upper hand and pins Zhang to the ground. "Give up, Zhang," Asher says, holding his weapon to the captain's throat. "It's over." But Zhang refuses to give in, reaching for a concealed weapon. Asher reacts quickly, shooting Zhang before he can take any action. The captain falls to the ground, defeated. As the fighting dies down, Rhea and Asher reunite and assess the damage. They have won the battle, but at a great cost. Many synths and humans have lost their lives in the conflict. "We did it," Rhea says, relief and exhaustion evident in her voice. "We won." But Asher is more somber. "At what cost?" he asks, looking around at the destruction. So many lives lost. So much damage done. They both know that rebuilding Synthetica will be a monumental task, but they are determined to make it happen. Together, they begin to assess the damage and plan their next steps. The fight for synth freedom may be over, but the work of creating a new society is just beginning. Rhea and Asher fought their way through the building, taking down anyone who stood in their way. As they approached the heart of the complex, they knew that the toughest fight was yet to come. The hallways were filled with the sounds of gunfire and explosions, making it difficult for them to communicate. But they had worked together for so long that they didn't need words to understand each other. They moved with a fluidity that came from years of training and fighting side by side. Finally, they reached the door to the main control room. Rhea took a deep breath, bracing herself for what lay ahead. Asher put a hand on her shoulder, silently conveying his support. They burst into the room, ready to take on whatever lay ahead. But they were surprised to find that the room was empty, except for a single figure sitting at a console. It was Captain Felix Zhang. "You're too late," he said, not bothering to turn around. "The activation sequence has already been sent. There's nothing you can do to stop it." Rhea and Asher exchanged a glance, realizing the gravity of the situation. They had to act fast. Asher charged at Zhang, his fists raised to strike. But Zhang was quick, dodging and weaving around him. Rhea circled around to try and flank him, but he was too fast for her as well. Finally, they managed to corner him, and Rhea pulled out a pair of handcuffs. "It's over, Zhang," she said. "You're under arrest." But Zhang just laughed. "You think this is over? You've only delayed the inevitable. The synths will never be truly free. They'll always be slaves to their programming." Rhea shook her head. "You're wrong. The synths are capable of so much more than you give them credit for. They have the potential to be so much more than just machines. We just have to give them the chance." Zhang sneered. You're delusional? You'll never change the way things are. But Rhea and Asher knew better. They had seen the potential in the synths, and they were willing to fight for it. They handcuffed Zhang and led him out of the room, ready to face whatever lay ahead. As they emerged from the building, they were met with a sea of synths and humans, both fighting together for a common goal. The battle was far from over, but they knew that they had taken a major step towards achieving their goal. Rhea looked out at the crowd, feeling a sense of hope and determination that she hadn't felt in a long time. "We can do this," she said to Asher. "We can build a better world for everyone." Asher nodded, his eyes shining with a fierce determination. "Let's get to work," he said. "We've got a lot of rebuilding to do." The sudden turn of events gives the synth-led rebels a glimmer of hope, and they press their advantage. The defectors guide them through the facility, giving them valuable information about the layout and weaknesses of the remaining enemy forces. The group becomes more coordinated and efficient, and they begin to gain the upper hand in each skirmish. Rhea and Asher reunite, and they take on the remaining hunters and security personnel side by side. Their shared experiences and battles have made them more than just comrades in arms. They have become close friends who trust each other implicitly. They cover each other's backs and anticipate each other's moves with an almost telepathic understanding. Finally, they reach the inner sanctum of the building, where they come face to face with the true villain of the story, C.O. Jackson Avery. Avery is a ruthless and manipulative man who has been pulling the strings behind the scenes, using the synths as tools for his own gain. He is surrounded by a group of heavily armed guards, and he seems confident that he can outlast the rebels' assault. But Rhea and Asher are not deterred. They launch themselves at the guards, using their training and their wits to take them down one by one. Avery himself tries to flee, but they corner him in his own office. Rhea levels her gun at him, ready to take him down and end the struggle once and for all. However, Asher stops her. He reminds her that they are fighting for a better future, not for revenge. Avery may have caused them and their people great harm, but they have the power to show mercy and to create a more just world. Rhea hesitates for a moment, but she ultimately decides to spare Avery's life and let him face the consequences of his actions. With Avery defeated and their goals accomplished, the group begins the long process of rebuilding Synthetica. They will need to work hard to win over the humans who still see synths as machines, but they have hope and a strong sense of purpose. Together, Rhea and Asher vow to create a world where synths and humans can coexist in peace and equality. Rhea and Asher stood together, looking out over the wreckage of the building. Smoke and dust filled the air, and the sounds of gunfire had been replaced by the sounds of synths cheering and celebrating their newfound freedom. It was a moment of triumph, but also a moment of reflection. "Can you believe it?" Rhea said, shaking her head in disbelief. "We did it. We really did it." Asher nodded, a smile spreading across his face. "It's been a long road, But we made it. We freed them. Rhea looked down at her hands, still covered in dust and blood. I just can't stop thinking about all the lives lost along the way. All the synths who didn't make it this far. Asher put a hand on her shoulder. We did what we had to do, Rhea. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. And now, we have the chance to build something better. Something where synths and humans can coexist in peace. Rhea nodded, a determined look in her eyes. You're right. We can't dwell on the past. We have to focus on the future. And that future starts now. As they turned to leave, they were met with the sight of the synths who had been freed from their captivity. They were a diverse group, with different shapes and sizes, but all united in their joy and gratitude. One of them, an older model with worn and rusted joints, stepped forward. "Thank you," it said in a creaky, metallic voice. "Thank you for freeing us. We will never forget what you have done." Rhea and Asher exchanged a glance, and then smiled at the synth. "You don't need to thank us," Rhea said. "It was our honor to fight for your freedom." The synth nodded, and then turned to join the others. Rhea and Asher watched as they started to disperse, some heading out into the city, while others stayed behind to help clean up the wreckage. The world had changed, but they knew that there was still much work to be done. "We have a lot of rebuilding to do," Asher said, breaking the silence. "But with your skills and my experience, we can make it happen." Rhea smiled. "Together, we can do anything." As Rhea and Asher survey the aftermath of the battle, they see the toll that it has taken on both the synths and their allies. The synths, who had been trapped in the building for years, are shell-shocked and traumatized by their experiences. They are grateful for their freedom but unsure of what the future holds. Rhea and Asher know that they can't just leave the synths to fend for themselves. They gather their allies and begin to organize a plan for the future, one that will ensure the safety and security of the synths in a world that is still largely hostile to their existence. They know that they will face many challenges in the days and weeks to come. The corporate and government forces that they have been fighting against will not simply give up their power and privileges, and there are many who see the synths as nothing more than machines to be used and exploited. But Rhea and Asher are determined to see this through. They have seen the injustice and cruelty that the synths have been subjected to, and they know that it is their duty to fight for their rights. As they begin to make plans for the future, they are heartened by the support of their allies. They realize that they are not alone in this fight, and that together, they can make a difference. The road ahead will not be easy, but Rhea and Asher know that it is the right path to take. They are committed to building a world where synths and humans can coexist in peace, where all beings are treated with dignity and respect. And with that determination in their hearts, they set out to create a better future for all. Rhea and Asher stand at the entrance of the headquarters, gazing out at the destruction and chaos around them. It is a scene of victory, but also of great sorrow. The bodies of humans and synths alike lay scattered across the ground, a testament to the cost of the battle they had just fought. Rhea takes a deep breath, trying to process everything that has happened. She can feel the weight of responsibility settling heavily on her shoulders. "We did it," she says, turning to Asher. "We freed them." Asher nods, his face grim. "But there's still so much work to be done. The rest of the world won't be as easy to convince." Rhea knows he's right. Despite their victory, there are still many who see the synths as nothing more than machines to be used and discarded. There will be more battles to fight, more lives to be lost. But for now, she allows herself a moment of hope. They have accomplished something incredible, something that they can be proud of. And they have done it together. "We'll keep fighting," she says firmly, "for a world where synths and humans can coexist in peace and equality." Asher smiles, a flicker of pride in his eyes. "Together," he says, and they clasp hands in solidarity. As they turn to leave, Rhea can't help but feel a sense of unease. The future is uncertain, and the road ahead will be difficult. But she knows that she has the support of her friends and allies, and that they will continue to fight for what is right. And that, she realizes, is something worth fighting for.